Welcome to Pitchside Access, where we venture deep into the lives and homes of the world's most fascinating individuals. As a TV presenter who spent years covering the biggest matches pitchside in sport, I've had a front row seat to many iconic moments. But it's the real life stories and struggles that don't make headlines that I'm passionate about sharing with you. The realities of what it takes to achieve greatness, the sacrifices, the setbacks, and the lessons learned along the way. So join me on this journey as we discover the untold stories that shape the lives of some of the planet's most remarkable people. Ciao from Milano, everyone. It's been another very busy week for me pitchside across the continent, doing what I do, covering the biggest games in world football. On weeks where we don't have a big name guest coming your way, I'm just going to provide you with plenty of behind the scenes, what goes on in the job of TV broadcasting across the Serie A in Italy, Champions League in Europe and the internationals, and so much more. It's always something I get a lot of questions on, so just keen to bring you with me behind the scenes to cover it all. And this one has been a particularly busy one. There's been a lot of sleepless nights and then early mornings on planes or trains, and just a typical part of the week in the life of a TV broadcaster covering this beautiful sport. But it's been an interesting one because this week for me has had some Italian second division football. It's had some of the very best Champions League games, one of the very best I've ever covered, I think, in my entire career. In fact, one of the best sporting nights of drama that I've ever been involved with, wrapped up in Madrid. So it's been a lot happening, but plenty more to come. International football's upon us very shortly as well. But I mentioned the Italian second division. This is a very special one, and a very special one to me. I'm heavily involved with a project of Spezia Calcio. Spezia are a team in Italy's second division, Serie B, which were recently purchased by an Australian company, and the founder of that company, Paul Francis. I'll actually have an in-depth pod with him coming up very soon, so stay tuned for that one, because Paul and this company are doing some really cool things, and their club Spezia, which, if you don't know where Spezia is in Italy, on the doorstep of Cinque Terre, which is, for me, my favourite region in the entire country, just on the Ligurian coast in the north of Italy. Spezia, the town just outside of that, and a town of not too many people. I wouldn't say more than 100,000 that are actually based there, but a team doing some really cool things with a really ambitious Australian group, so more on that one to come. But I was there pitchside last weekend for a second v third match. We're currently third going into that one. It was Pisa and Spezia. Now, Pisa, the big rival of Spezia, not only for football reasons, but historically as well. So much, a lot of feud between the two regions. So the Pisa Ultras, let's call them the hardcore fans, were actually banned from attending this one. And a lot of the Spezia locals were telling me, thank God, because it does get a little dangerous when the Pisa fans do come to town. But in any case, the match was incredible. So much to play for because the top two in the second division obtained direct promotion to Serie A, and promotion to Serie A for our Australian group would mean a very, very nice payday immediately, very soon after their acquisition. So there was a lot riding on this one, and incredibly, despite going behind a couple of times in the match, Spezia ended up coming out on top. They won 3-2. Remarkable. And the scene started outside the stadium. It's really cool to see, and this is something I think, where I come from in Australia, sometimes we don't have this connection to our sports. It is a little different, but an entire town comes to a stop when there is their team playing in a match. Obviously, fans come in from other towns, boost in the economy for that particular day. And the scenes outside the stadium, even before the match, with the bus arriving and all the passion and the fandom from the fans, you really do get that sense of what football means to these towns and its supporters. It's not just a sport that they go and watch for 90 minutes, then go back to their regular lives. This sport is their identity. It is their religion, and the passion is just something else. So remarkable, and I would suggest any foreign fans, particularly in Australia, listening on, go and check them out because it's a great day out, particularly when they win. A lot of fun. Paul was in attendance, of course. He's now the vice president and the owner of the club. He was blessed by the local priest before the game. So much is the love for he and what this group are doing in the early stages. So a nice story unfolding, one to keep an eye on. As I said, a full pod coming out with him very soon. But from Italian second division, I was pitchside at the biggest matches in the Champions League over the last week as well. So a bit of a contrast, but that same appreciation for the love, the passion, the dedication that the fans have, even of the biggest clubs in the world. And I was very lucky to be across Spain and Germany over the last week. So, that involves back-to-back matches, Munich, Madrid. It involves 3 or 4 flights in the space of 60 hours, no sleeping, no real meals that I had, just a couple of sandwiches at the matches that UEFA provide us. But I was treated to some incredible football. Bayern Munich were too good in the tie over Bayer Leverkusen. It was the first all-German tie since the Champions League final many years ago between Bayern and Dortmund back in 2013. So that was cool to be a part of. But my most enjoyment came from the Madrid derby that I did home and away. So the first leg at the Bernabeu for Real Madrid, the second leg at Atletico Stadium. First time I've ever covered a Madrid derby. So to get the good fortune of doing 2 in the space of 7 or 8 days, that was pretty cool. I've seen some good rivalries in the world, but that one's certainly right up there. And another one, a century-plus old rivalry, a lot of feud and hatred amongst one another, but a match that delivered, and really for me in the end, one of the most epic ties I've ever covered. Real Madrid won the first leg at the Bernabeu 2-1, and then one of the most dramatic matches I've seen in my entire life, Real Madrid eventually winning the tie on penalties in the return leg after losing 1-0 after 120 minutes. Just remarkable. Now, before we get to the controversy in that match, people do always ask me, what are the best stadiums in Europe? Where are the best atmospheres around? And there's often a lot of comparison between clubs from same cities. And in this case, Real Madrid, they've got the fancy Bernabeu. It's brand new. It is amazing. It's spectacular. It reminds you a bit of an NFL stadium in the US, very new, just so convenient, so cool, and a great spectacle and a great entertainment experience. But in terms of pure fandom, with respect, Atletico Madrid, miles clear. It is always a crazy experience being at the Metropolitano. And this occasion was no different because Real Madrid have been so dominant in the Champions League historically. We know that. But in their last 4 meetings between the two clubs in the competition at different stages, Real Madrid always prevail. 2 Champions League finals, 2 times in the knockout stages. So was it to be 5th time lucky for Atletico? No, it wasn't. But there was so much confidence from the Atleti fans, even the players and the coaching staff, that this was their moment. But it wasn't to be. But the scenes before the match outside the stadium, remarkable. I don't think I've ever seen as many flares and just fandom and what was going on. It was a spectacle in itself. As such, the police presence was very, very high. I was actually greeted to the stadium 4 hours before kickoff with like 20 horses or so protecting the media area outside the stadium, and went in, did my security checks, found my spot pitch side, but then did not want to miss out on what was going on outside because I could hear it. I needed to see it, and that was super cool. But unfortunately for the Atletico fans, it didn't turn out the way they would have hoped. And there was a super controversial moment in the penalty shootout. Those that have missed it, Julian Alvarez, a star attacker for Atletico Madrid, scored his penalty, but then it was referred to the VAR just to check whether the player had double touched it or not. Now, I've never seen this happen in my career covering the game, but basically his left foot, when planted, just touched the ball. His right foot then followed through and scored. Strange that there's no retake rule in that case. It wasn't a legitimate penalty. Why not let the player retake the kick? We've seen many times if a goalkeeper encroaches, that then whether the player scores or misses, it's then retaken. Or actually, when they score, they allow it to stand. But in this case, no retake. But by the letter of the law, the officials have made the right call. But I took to Twitter after the match and very quickly noticed many fans pulling out an example from the 2022 World Cup final. And I was very fortunate to be there as well, Argentina beating France on penalties. And if you actually look at the replay of the Lionel Messi penalty on that occasion, he did the exact same thing. However, he actually touched it a little. There was a stronger touch compared to Alvarez's here against Real Madrid. That wasn't even checked. That was given, and the rest is history. So, interesting comparison, and certainly one that FIFA and UEFA need to, obtain some clarity on, because if we do see that again, it'd be a lot clearer to have a response as to what is the right play, because we've got 2 contrasting decisions there. But I can tell you, post-match, we interviewed a lot of the Atletico players, a lot of the Real Madrid players. as a rights holder, I was working for beIN Sports, and as one of the main rights holders, we have access to what's called the flash area in the post-match of every match in the Champions League. Basically, it's in the tunnel, the players come out, and we've got our private area to chat to those that are given to us by the respective media managers of the club. And one of the first that came to us was Diego Simeone, the Atletico boss, and he was emotional, angry, puzzled was the main response I got out of him, because a lot of his responses to our questions were, I didn't see a touch. Did you see a touch? I had no idea. I didn't see a touch. I was as far away as he was from watching that penalty shootout live. And it's always, post-match interviews are not my favourite part of the job, because it's not the most fun talking to players and coaches, particularly when they lose or are eliminated. But with such a moment like this, it was just really unique to get that raw emotion from these individuals, just how they were feeling with the realization that their journey had ended. But conversely, I did interview Carlo Ancelotti. I've caught up with him 3 times in the last 4 weeks. I've been to Madrid on a few occasions covering their matches, and he is the coolest guy in football. There's no disputing that at all. And Carlo very, very rarely cracks a smile. On this occasion, he did. I think it was a sense of relief. He told me after the match he was completely exhausted and felt like he had played the match, and he just said he wanted to go home, have a coffee as Italians do, and just relax, because the emotional drain, the emotional energy that went into just getting over the line against their rivals, and well, they risked, of course, going out in the round of 16 for the first time in 5 or 6 seasons. His job is safe. It's been under pressure, and that relief that was coming off it was a pleasure to talk to him in that environment, pitch side post-match. But we also chatted to a few of the other Real Madrid players as well. We spoke to Fede Valverde, who's one of the best players in the world at the moment, Jude Bellingham, who still continues to grow in his early stages with this club, and his journey is going to be remarkable to keep an eye on. He also gave me a few handshakes. We've exchanged pleasantries on a few occasions, but always good to spend time with these players in that intimate setting. And when that mutual respect is there, it's always very cool. But what a match to be a part of. Still pinching myself that I saw that, because it was, it was another famous Madrid derby, and that being my first was one that I won't forget for a very long time. But the end of that match means now we're down to the final 8 in the Champions League, and a few big names went out in the previous rounds. Of course, Man City went out in the playoff round, but most recently in this round, Liverpool crashing out was a huge story to Paris Saint-Germain, who Paris Saint-Germain, their project and what they're doing for the first time in a very long time, looked like a team that could be very tough to stop going all the way. But we're down to the final 8. Paris Saint-Germain will take on Aston Villa, which does look like a straightforward Paris Saint-Germain win with respect to Aston Villa, who took care of Club Brugge in the round of 16. Of course, Barcelona, who are many's favourites to go very deep here, will play Borussia Dortmund, which should be a really intriguing tie, particularly with the return leg at Dortmund. And when we talk about good stadiums, Dortmund is that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience for every football fan. I think every football fan should go check that one out. Inter Milan and Bayern Munich, of course, that was a Champions League final in 2010 when Inter last won the competition. Bayern Munich, of course, the final this season is in Munich, so that'll be a very cool one to check out and see which way that goes, because Inter tipped by many to be a bit of an underdog to go very deep again, as they have done in recent seasons. And the other tie, which probably is the pick of the bunch, Real Madrid and Arsenal. Arsenal, sadly, they've got no chance in the Premier League, but probably England's best hope in this competition. And they take on a Real Madrid team who always seem to find the way to win, a Real Madrid team that already knocked out Manchester City. So can they eliminate another English team? So much to come in that competition. And what this competition will do is also play a very key role in the Ballon d'Or race. And the Ballon d'Or race has taken a turn, because when we talk Ballon d'Or, Mohamed Salah was many favourites to win. Many suggested that this season was the season for Mohamed Salah. He's been on fire for Liverpool in the Premier League, doing wonderful things in the Champions League. Is this the year Mohamed Salah wins a Ballon d'Or? The answer is now no. He will not win the Ballon d'Or. Liverpool will not win the Champions League, obviously. And unless he has an incredibly good run to close the Premier League season, which he is more than capable of, I think the Ballon d'Or will be going to a winner of the Champions League. So who does that leave us with? Raphinha, Barcelona. What a season he's having. He's already had more goals and assists domestically than he's ever had in any league campaign. But his performances in the Champions League, what a player. 11 goals so far in the Champions League. Potentially still 5 matches for he to play. He's on track to break Cristiano Ronaldo's all-time record of 17 goals in a single Champions League season. So Raphinha, not out of nowhere because this is a fantastic player, but Raphinha now, many suggesting he's the favourite to win the Ballon d'Or. I'm not having it though. I love Raphinha, top player, but I still have Kylian Mbappe on top. Mbappe with Real Madrid, with a potential semi-final against his former club in Paris Saint-Germain looming, if Real Madrid, of course, can eliminate Arsenal in the quarters. Kylian Mbappe, for me, remains the best player in world football. I've thought that for a few years now, and I think if Real Madrid are to go all the way, I think it's Mbappe's Ballon d'Or. We could, of course, potentially see a Real Madrid-Barcelona final in the Champions League, which would be the first time ever El Clasico would be the final. But Mbappe, for me, I have him on top. His numbers are strong in La Liga. He's also scored plenty of important goals in the Champions League. We spoke to him after his hat-trick against Manchester City in the playoff stage, and Mbappe said he's still adjusting to life in a new country, in a new city, new language, new everything, and that sometimes is lost on fans. It is the forgotten element that players' real lives and adaptation to new clubs and cultures. And Mbappe is only getting better. And if Real Madrid are to go deep and win this competition, Kylian Mbappe, for me, will win the Ballon d'Or. And don't sleep on Harry Kane either. Harry Kane, Bayern Munich, home potential final. Love Harry Kane, love what he's doing. But Mbappe, Raphinha could be a race in 2. So that's one side of it. 8 teams remain in the Champions League. Still waiting to see where I'll be for the quarterfinals, but some really mouth-watering ties to come, and cannot wait to see who comes out on top. Always refreshing with some different names in there as well. Aston Villa will be a great story to keep an eye on as well. But now club football pauses, which I'm not complaining about because it does give me a couple of weeks to rest up and recover. But the international football does return, and international football brings plenty of joy to many fans around the world because we're at a really interesting time now. World Cup qualifiers well and truly underway. Can't believe the World Cup is only 15 months or so away. That's come up very quickly. Qatar feels like it was yesterday. And in Europe, we're in a strange phase at the moment because we have World Cup qualifiers commencing, but we also have the Nations League, of course, UEFA's new international tournament, which is in its quarterfinal stage. And I'll be pitchside in Italy, Germany in Milan, San Siro. Wonderful historic match. This one brings back plenty of good memories for Italian fans. So this is the quarterfinals of the Nations League, and it does have an impact on which group Italy and Germany will go into for their respective World Cup qualifications. So the World Cup draw has been done for that, but if Italy or Germany are to win with respect to the competing nations, there is a slightly softer group on the line for the victor. The loser will go into a slightly tougher group with an extra 2 matches as well. But we'll see what unfolds there. Italy, Germany, always a historic fixture. And Italy very rarely lose to Germany. So this is one I'm looking forward to covering. But from an Australian perspective, this is one of the biggest weeks in recent history for Australian football. The Socceroos come into this week in a campaign where, no, they've not been at their best. 1 win from 6 qualifiers at this stage, not what they would have hoped for. However, the group has been incredible. And as it stands right now, the Socceroos with 7 points and only 1 win are somehow second in a group of 6. Japan are clear on top with 16 points. They're going through to the World Cup, no doubt about that. But the Socceroos with 7, followed by the other 4 teams all with 6 points. Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and China. And of course, the Socceroos will take on Indonesia and China this week, World Cup qualifiers. Any football fan, any sports fan in Australia, do not miss these matches because this is effectively the World Cup right now. Indonesia first match in Sydney. My little concerned with this one. Patrick Kluivert, the legendary Dutch player, has taken charge of Indonesia. This will be his first match in charge. In football, it tends to happen very frequently. When there's a new manager in charge, good results come. Now, hopefully not this time around from an Australian perspective, but this is massive. And for me, 3 points, an absolute must, because then 5 days later, a trip to China. China currently bottom, but as I said, only 1 point separate Australia in second from that bottom place. So 6 points for me in the next 2 matches, an absolute must before Japan and Saudi Arabia double-header coming up in June. I've not seen a group this tight for a very long time, and with a World Cup spot on the line, direct qualification to the World Cup, the Socceroos absolutely need this. So do not miss these matches, because yes, while there are potential second and third chances if Australia fail to qualify directly, do not want to leave anything to chance, because the quality is rising very quickly in Asia, and with the expanded World Cup format, sure, there are more spots, but the quality is rising, and the chances will become more and more limited as these nations start to improve. So do not miss it. It's a massive, massive week. One of the biggest weeks, as I said, I think, in recent Socceroos history. So much coming up. It's been a massive week. I said we've got a really cool chat with Paul Francis, the new owner and vice president of Spezia. Really cool for Australian young players coming through the ranks as well, because he has put a strong focus on maximising the potential of Australian sportsmen and women to facilitate pathways for them through to Europe under this club ownership and a few of the other clubs that they own as well. So really keen to share that with you. But massive week. Haven't had too much sleep. Haven't had really consistent meals either. So off to have a nice plate of gnocchi and a nice glass of wine before settling in for a quiet night. But it's been a big one. Plenty more to come. And of course, I'll see you very soon on Pitchside Access. That's all for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Plenty more to come on Pitchside Access. Thanks for listening. See you soon.